The wind crawled across the plains like a wounded beast, carrying with it the taste of iron and dust. Under the dying sun, the horizon burned copper, and the world looked like it was holding its breath. Elias Ward rode through that silence. His horse, a black mare named Juniper, snorted against the cold dusk, hooves thudding over the hardpan. The man's coat was torn at the sleeve, his hat low, his jaw tight, as if clenching down on memories he refused to chew on. He hadn't spoken to another soul in 3 days. He didn't plan to. Not since Dust Creek. That town, once a promising settlement, had turned rotten from the inside out. The mayor's sons ran it like a kingdom of fear. The preacher drank from the same cup of lies. And Elias had once been their hired gun. He'd carried out orders without asking questions, until the night they made him do something he couldn't forgive himself for. And so he left, dragging his guilt behind him like a chain. But tonight, the wind changed, and with it came a sound that didn't belong to the wilderness. A cry, soft, broken, human. He froze. Juniper's ears twitched, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to pause. Then it came again, faint but clear. A woman's cry. Elias dismounted, his boots crunching the dirt. The air smelled of gunpowder and rain. He followed the sound past a cluster of dead mesquite trees, past an overturned wagon wheel and scattered fabric fluttering in the wind. Then he saw her, a young woman, barely conscious, lying half covered by dust and blood, torn dress, mud on her cheek. Her eyes were half open, searching for something that might save her before the darkness took her away. Elias knelt beside her. "Easy now," he muttered, brushing the hair from her face. "You're all right?" She tried to speak. Her voice cracked like dry wood. They took everything." He pulled a canteen from his saddlebag, pressing it to her lips. She coughed, drank, and winced as pain rippled through her body. He could see bruises, cuts, fresh, deliberate. "Who did this?" he asked. Her fingers clutched his sleeve weakly. "The Holden boys. Grant's men. They came back." The name struck him like a lash. Grant Holden. The mayor's eldest son. The man Elias once rode with. The same man who'd burned down a house for sport, laughing as the flames took a child's cry with them. Elias swallowed hard. "You from Dust Creek?" Her gaze met his, haunted, determined. "Was," she said. "They ran us out after my father spoke against them. He's gone now." The desert swallowed the rest of her words. Elias exhaled through his teeth. "You're safe now," he said, though he didn't believe it. "What's your name?" "Clara," she whispered. "Clara Dane." He nodded, lifting her gently into his arms. She was light, too light, and cold. He placed her on Juniper's back and led the horse toward the old mining shack he'd passed an hour earlier. As the night deepened, a storm crawled in from the west. Lightning split the sky, and Elias guided her inside just before the heavens broke open. Rain slammed against the roof like rifle fire. He lit a lantern. Shadows trembled along the walls. Clara stirred on the cot he'd laid her on. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice weak but suspicious. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he wrung out a cloth and cleaned the blood from her forehead. "Because someone should have helped you sooner," he said finally. "You don't even know me." He met her eyes. "Maybe not, but I know what it's like to be left for dead." Silence hung between them, broken only by the storm's rage. Clara studied him, the scar along his jaw, the worn revolver by his side, the loneliness in his eyes. "You've done bad things," she said softly. It wasn't a question. Elias gave a humorless chuckle. "Plenty. And now you're trying to make it right." "Maybe." He leaned back against the wall, the lantern light flickering across his face. "Or maybe I'm just running from ghosts." Her lips curved into a faint, pained smile. "Then I guess we're both haunted." By morning, the storm had passed. Clara could sit up now, though her body trembled from weakness. Elias cooked beans over a small fire, the smell filling the tiny shack. "Where will you go?" he asked as she ate. "Back to Dust Creek," she said without hesitation. He looked up sharply. "That's suicide." "I can't run forever. My father tried to stand up to them, and they killed him. I can't let that be the end of it." Elias shook his head. "You'll die before you even get close. Then at least I'll die trying." Her voice held no fear, only something sharper, a purpose. It made something shift inside him, something he thought he'd buried years ago. He reached for his coffee, staring into the fire. "You want revenge?" "I want justice," she corrected. "But they're the same thing in Dust Creek." He couldn't argue with that. She studied him for a long moment. "You've faced them before, haven't you?" He nodded. "I was one of them." Clara went still. "You worked for Grant Holden." "Worked with him," Elias said, bitterness in his tone, "until I learned what he really was. And now you're hiding in the hills while he keeps destroying lives." He met her gaze, steady, unflinching. "You don't know what I've lost." "And you don't know what I've lost," she replied quietly. The words cut deeper than she knew. Elias looked away, jaw clenched. The fire popped. Outside, the wind whispered against the boards. Then she said something he didn't expect. "If you help me get into Dust Creek, I'll tell you where they're keeping the ledger." He turned sharply. "Ledger?" She nodded. "Grant keeps records, names, bribes, payments. My father was one of the few who saw it. Before they killed him, that book could destroy them." Elias stared at her, the gears turning in his mind. If she was telling the truth, that ledger was the key to ending the Holden's reign. But to get it, they'd have to walk straight into the lion's den. "You're serious about this?" he asked. "Dead serious?" He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You're either brave or foolish, Miss Dane." "Maybe both." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Then you'll fit right in." That night, as Clara slept, Elias sat outside under the cold stars, his revolver resting across his knees. He thought of Dust Creek, the saloon lights, the church bell that hadn't rung in years, the faces of men who'd once called him brother. He'd tried to forget them, tried to build a quiet life in the shadows. But maybe Clara was right. Running hadn't made the ghost disappear. The wind shifted again, whispering across the desert floor, carrying the faint echo of gunfire far in the distance. Elias tightened his grip on the revolver. "Looks like the past found me anyway," he muttered. He turned his gaze to the stars, then to the sleeping woman inside the shack. For the first time in years, something stirred in his chest, something dangerous, hope. If you were Elias, would you help her, or keep running from a past drenched in blood? Let me know in the comments, because what happens next will change both their lives forever. Morning broke cold and sharp. The desert shimmered with heat mirages by noon. But inside Elias's mind, the storm from last night hadn't quieted. He rolled a cigarette, his rough hand steady despite the unease twisting his gut. Clara sat opposite him, wrapping a bandage tighter around her arm, her eyes full of fire and resolve. "You sure about this?" he asked. Clara nodded. "I've been sure since the day they burned my home." Her voice didn't waver. She wasn't pretending to be brave. She was past fear. Elias watched her for a long moment before crushing the cigarette between his fingers. "Then we do it my way. No noise, no mistakes." "Fine," she said. "But we do it tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "You planning on walking into Dust Creek in broad daylight?" She smirked faintly. "No. But by tonight, they'll be drunk. They always are after the races." Elias frowned. She knew the town's rhythm, their habits, their weaknesses. That told him one thing. Clara wasn't just some farmer's daughter. She'd been part of Dust Creek's heart once, before it turned black. "Tell me about the ledger," he said, leaning forward. "It's kept in the mayor's office," she said. "Locked in a safe behind a painting of his father, Judge Holden. My father saw it once when he went to deliver a contract." "And you think it's still there?" "I know it is," she replied. "Grant wouldn't risk moving it. He's arrogant, not stupid." Elias smiled grimly. That arrogance might just get him killed. By nightfall, the two were riding along the ridge overlooking Dust Creek. From a distance, the town glowed with lantern light, alive with laughter, music, and sin. It hadn't changed much. The saloons still spilled drunks into the street. The old chapel stood dark and hollow. The sheriff's office looked the same too. But the man inside it wasn't the sheriff Elias once knew. That man was buried in a shallow grave 3 miles north of here. Clara tightened her grip on the reins. "You don't have to come," she said. Elias gave a dry chuckle. "You think I'd let you walk into that hellhole alone? Besides," he adjusted his hat, the shadow of a smile crossing his lips, "I got a few ghosts of my own to pay a visit to." They hid their horses behind an old windmill and approached the town on foot. The night air smelled of whiskey and smoke. Every creak of the boardwalk echoed like thunder. As they slipped into an alley, Elias caught sight of a familiar sign, the Gilded Spur Saloon. His jaw clenched. Inside those walls, he'd spilled more blood than he cared to remember. "Stay close," he whispered. They moved like shadows. Past the saloon, past the blacksmith's yard. The mayor's mansion loomed at the edge of town, 3 stories of arrogance, guarded by 2 men with rifles. Elias scanned the perimeter. "We'll go through the side gate," he said. "There's a servant's door around back. I remember where it is." Clara nodded. "And once we're in, straight to the study. We grab the ledger and disappear before anyone's sober enough to count their fingers." Simple plan. But plans rarely survive Dust Creek. They slipped through the side gate without a sound. Inside, the mansion smelled of cigar smoke and money. Every surface gleamed like it was trying to hide the rot beneath. Elias moved first, checking corners, every step silent. Clara followed, her breath shallow but steady. The study door was half open. They slid inside and froze. A man was already there. Not Grant Holden, not the mayor, Caleb Voss. Elias's stomach dropped. Caleb was a gunslinger once, same as him. But while Elias found regret, Caleb found ambition. He'd become Grant's enforcer, the right hand that carried out his dirtiest orders. And now he stood by the desk, counting stacks of cash. "Well," Caleb said, without looking up, "I'll be damned. Elias Ward." Elias's hand drifted toward his revolver. "Step aside, Caleb." Caleb turned, grinning. "Still giving orders like you're one of us. Tell me, how's Exile treating you?" "I didn't come here to talk." "Then why'd you bring her?" His gaze slid toward Clara, and his smile turned cold. "Pretty thing. Grant's been looking for her." Clara stiffened. Elias's trigger finger twitched. "Touch her, and you'll be looking at the devil himself," Elias said. Caleb chuckled. "Always so dramatic." He reached for his gun, but Elias moved faster. The shot cracked through the study, shattering the silence. Caleb staggered back, clutching his shoulder, eyes wide with fury. "You son of a—" Elias didn't let him finish. He grabbed Clara's wrist. "Move!" They ran, down the hall, past the kitchen. Bullets splintered the door frames as guards shouted behind them. Clara's heartbeat roared in her ears. "Where's the ledger?" Elias demanded. She pointed toward the grand staircase. "Upstairs!" They climbed 2 steps at a time, gunfire echoing below. The second floor was empty, except for one large door at the end of the corridor, the mayor's office. Elias kicked it open. Inside, moonlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating the portrait of Judge Holden hanging over the desk. Clara ran to it, lifting the frame. Behind it, a safe. "Can you open it?" Elias asked. She nodded, pulling a small key from a chain around her neck. Her hands trembled, but the lock turned with a click. Inside lay stacks of papers, a ledger bound in red leather, and a revolver. Clara grabbed the ledger just as the door burst open. Grant Holden stood there, tall, blond, eyes gleaming like a wolf's. "Well," he drawled, "look what the wind dragged back." The air thickened with tension. Elias stepped in front of Clara, gun raised. "Grant," he said, "it ends tonight." Grant smirked. "Funny. That's exactly what I told your brother before he begged for his life." Elias froze. "You're lying." "Oh, I'm not. He came looking for you. I gave him the same mercy you never gave your victims." Rage burned through Elias's chest. He fired. Grant ducked, returning a shot that shattered the window. The room filled with smoke and chaos. Clara dived behind the desk, clutching the ledger. Glass exploded. A bullet grazed her arm, but she didn't scream. Elias lunged forward, knocking Grant to the floor. They struggled, fists slamming, boots scraping against wood. The gun slid out of reach. "You think you can wash away your sins?" Grant hissed. "You'll always be one of us." Elias snarled, punching him hard. Not anymore. Grant's hand shot toward a knife on the table. Before he could strike, Clara swung the butt of the revolver across his head. He collapsed, unconscious. Elias stared at her, then at the blood on her hands. You all right? She nodded, breathless. We have to go. Now. They fled down the stairs as guards swarmed in, shouting orders. Elias shot out the back door's lock, and they burst into the night. By the time the alarm bell rang, they were already on horseback, galloping into the dark. They rode for miles before stopping near a canyon, the moon hanging like a watchful eye. Clara slid off her horse, clutching the ledger close. Elias dismounted, pacing, his adrenaline still burning. That was close, she said. Too close. She opened the ledger carefully. Inside were pages of names, deals and payments, proof of every crime committed under Grant's name. This could destroy them, she said softly. Elias looked at her, eyes shadowed. Or get us killed before sunrise. Then we'll move before dawn. He nodded, but his gaze lingered on her too long. Something about the way she held herself, brave, steady despite the pain, reminded him of everything Dust Creek had taken from him. You did good back there, he'd said finally. She smiled faintly. You didn't do so bad yourself, Ward. For a moment, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was something else, something warmer. But far in the distance, a gunshot echoed. Then another. Elias's jaw tightened. They're tracking us. Clara closed the ledger. Then we'd better make sure they never find what they're looking for. They've stolen the ledger, but at what cost? Do you think Elias and Clara can escape Dust Creek alive, or will the Holdens hunt them to the ends of the desert? The night had teeth. Elias Ward knew it from the way the wind cut through the canyon. Sharp, cold, carrying the scent of gunpowder and revenge. He crouched by the dying fire, checking his rifle again. Beside him, Clara Jennings sat wrapped in a blanket, the red ledger clutched against her chest like scripture. How long do you think before they find us? She asked quietly. Elias's eyes never left the horizon. They already have. Her breath hitched. How do you know? He tapped his ear. Coyote's been howling same way for the last hour. Then they stopped. Silence. She understood. Men were coming. By dawn, dust trails rose in the east. 6 riders, fast and armed. Grant Holden wasn't among them, but his brother Wyatt was, and that meant trouble. Wyatt wasn't as clever as Grant, but he was twice as mean. Clara watched them approach, her knuckles white on the ledger. We can't outrun them. Elias stood, the rifle hanging loose in his hands. Wasn't planning to. Elias, there's too many. He cut her off. You came this far for the truth. Now we finish it. He pointed toward a narrow ridge overlooking the canyon pass. There. If they ride through, I can slow them down long enough for you to get to the ridge trail. And what about you? Elias gave a faint smile. Don't worry about me. Clara shook her head, voice trembling. No, I'm not leaving you here to die. He stepped close, the lines around his eyes softening. You're not running away, Clara. You're running towards something. Justice, your father's name, Red Hollow's truth. She swallowed hard, fighting tears. Then you better not die on me. Elias gave a half grin. I'll do my best. They split up. Clara climbed the ridge, clutching the ledger. Elias took position among the rocks, his rifle trained on the narrow path below. The first rider appeared, a black horse, coat slick with sweat. Elias exhaled, squeezed. The trigger. The echo cracked across the canyon. The man fell from his saddle before he even hit the dirt. Chaos erupted. Wyatt's voice roared through the canyon. He's up there! Spread out! Elias fired again. Another man dropped, but the rest were closing in. Bullets whined past his head, slicing into the stone around him. He rolled behind cover, reloading fast. His hands were steady, but his breath came hard. He was no stranger to dying fights. But this one, he realized, wasn't about him anymore. It was about her. On the ridge, Clara opened the ledger again, flipping through pages as the gunfire echoed below. She knew she couldn't help Elias with bullets, but maybe with words. She found what she was looking for, the Holden contracts signed by the sheriff, the banker, the land commissioner, all forged. Her father's debt wasn't debt at all. It was theft. She ripped the pages free, tucking them into her blouse. Then she took off running toward the telegraph office 2 miles west, the only line that could reach Denver. Behind her, gunfire thundered like war drums. Elias hit one more man before the odds caught up. A bullet tore through his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Pain bloomed like fire. He crawled behind a boulder, blood soaking into the dust. His vision blurred, but through it, he saw Wyatt approaching, gun drawn, grin wide and cruel. "Should have stayed in exile, Ward," Wyatt sneered. "You ain't no hero, just a washed-up killer playing saint." Elias coughed, spitting blood. "Maybe." He raised the rifle with his good arm. "But saints don't aim this steady." He fired. The bullet hit Wyatt square in the gut. The man stumbled, dropped to his knees, eyes full of disbelief. "You'll never make it out," Wyatt gasped. Elias smiled faintly. "I don't plan to." Then the last of the men closed in. Gunfire lit the canyon like lightning. Clara burst into the telegraph office, panting, soaked with sweat and dirt. The operator, a frail man with shaky hands, stared at her in shock. "I need to send this," she gasped, slamming the papers on the counter. "To Denver, federal marshals. Now." He hesitated. "Miss, I—" She grabbed his collar. "Please, people are dying. Send it now." Something in her eyes made him move. He started typing, the machine clacking like gunfire. As he worked, Clara's heart pounded. Every second counted. Every click of the key might mean the difference between life and death. When the message sent, she sagged against the counter, whispering, "Hold on, Elias. Please hold on." Back in the canyon, the dust had settled. Smoke curled from the rocks. 3 men lay dead, 2 more wounded. Elias lay among them, blood pooling beneath him. The sun burned white overhead. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then hoofbeats. Clara's horse tore down the trail, her hair whipping in the wind. She jumped off before it even stopped, falling to her knees beside him. "Elias," she cried, "don't you dare die on me." He opened one eye, weakly smirking. "Told you I'd do my best." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She pressed her hands to his wound, desperate. "Help's coming. I sent word to Denver. The marshals are on their way." He looked past her, to the open sky. "Good. Maybe this place'll finally breathe clean air again." "Don't talk like that," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Clara, you remind me of someone I once knew. My sister. She never got her justice." She gripped his hand tight. "Then let me get it for her too." Elias exhaled slowly, the fight leaving him. "You already did." 2 days later, the federal marshals rode into Red Hollow. They came at dawn, 12 men in gray coats carrying the weight of the law on their backs. By noon, the Holdens were in shackles. The sheriff's badge lay tarnished in the dust. The townsfolk watched in silence as the marshals hauled the mayor away. Some wept. Others just stared, as if they'd forgotten what justice even looked like. And when word spread that Elias Ward had died protecting the girl who exposed it all, something in Red Hollow shifted. The town that once turned its head began to look itself in the mirror. Weeks passed. Clara rebuilt her father's store, the same one that had been burned down by the Holden's men. She painted the front sign herself, Jennings and Ward Mercantile. The name made her smile every time she saw it. Sometimes, when the evening sun hit the hills just right, she swore she could still hear him, Elias's voice, low and steady, telling her to stand her ground. She'd pour 2 cups of coffee and set one across the table, just the way he used to. "Here's to you, Elias," she'd whisper. "You kept your promise." But stories travel faster than wind out west, and they say sometimes, when riders pass through the canyons near Dust Creek at dusk, they see a figure standing among the rocks, broad shoulders, weathered hat, rifle in hand, watching over the valley he died to save. The law may have cleaned Red Hollow, but justice had the face of a man named Elias Ward and the courage of a woman named Clara Jennings. So tell me something. If you were Elias Ward, would you have stayed and fought, or ridden away to start over? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something, take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more than you think. If you're new here, subscribe. Join this little campfire we're building. Every week, we share stories of redemption, courage, and second chances. Until next time, rest easy, partners, and may tomorrow bring you calm skies.